Welcome back, everyone. Last time we saw that Grandma also wanted to be young again for her husband, but when she tried to change the clock, she hit it and broke it. This caused her to change not only herself, but also her memories back to her old foolish self since she could not understand the calendar, as well as found that TV and fridge weird items to be inside the home which shocked Shizu as if she was acting. Will this affect her life, or will Grandma lose her way as she still believes she is living in the old time? Keep watching to find out. So the show begins, and we see that Shuzu asked the grandmother if everything was okay, but Ain could only answer, "Who are you calling grandmother?" So now, in order to get everything in order, the grandfather sat down next to her to ask if she was really playing, but the young woman seemed to be telling the truth. He understood that his wife had rejuvenated time even before their marriage, but mentally, she still seemed calm. She explained that she had just woken up and the world had advanced almost a century. Since she woke up with a ring on her finger, everything she said must be true. This led the young woman to ask her grandfather if she was the one who had proposed to him in the past. When he said yes, she was surprised and wanted to know how she did it and why she chose to spend so much time with him. She suggested to her husband that he try everything to make her fall in love with him again. Without hesitation, Grandpa started with the basics like showing her the modern wonders that made cooking rice to perfection effortless. This amazed Ayan as she had never tasted such delicious rice in the past. At dinner, she also noticed that even though they were from the future, people still appreciated food. That made her happy. She was also glad that soy sauce was now easier to buy. When it was time to wash the dishes, In was surprised to see her husband doing it because it was unusual for him. She quickly learned that her father was that kind of person, which made him the opposite. He also admitted that he was never good at cooking, so In always did it. This surprised her, but he told her not to be surprised because she even helped with the work in the apple orchard they had. Although she was impressed that he helped, she still marveled at how he did all the chores without complaining or seeking recognition. By nightfall, she couldn't understand anything they told her about clocks and magical dreams. So her grandfather told her to rest, promising that she would understand better and see the clock in the morning. When morning came, In saw a rejuvenated Shuzu, which surprised her. When he asked if she remembered him now, she couldn't, which hurt Shuzu, who had hoped she would recognize him. Even though In couldn't remember his voice or appearance, she admitted that she felt sad to see him like this and wanted to share his sadness. When the photos arrived, Shuzu introduced Ain to her son and granddaughter, who were very nice and visited her often. This made Aang feel bad because she was afraid that they would hurt her if they knew she had lost her memory. When Mino's voice sounded, the grandfather remembered that their granddaughter and her family would be visiting today, so Aang quickly agreed to pretend to be the grandmother. Although her husband wasn't sure if she could, given her memory loss and strange speech, he asked her to try her best, because it was a mother's duty to prevent her children from being sad. With the Yoshiaki family there, Shuzu asked his father how he was doing, and Shuzu said he was doing very well. When he used the word Vivaraksha, his son didn't understand, so Shuzu claimed it was a word they heard at a recent seniors festival, saving Ain from suspicion. Seeing her grandmother's fondness for these expressions made Ain happy to have such a sweet granddaughter like Mino, hugging her tightly until Yoshiaki asked if she always hugged for more than 10 minutes. Now it was time to cook, and the grandmother started chopping everything she saw because technically she didn't know how to cook, her servants always did. Since Ain had no other choice, she asked her husband to teach her how to chop vegetables, but he patiently began. This felt oddly nostalgic to Ain, like the food she had eaten last night, which were technically leftovers she had made before losing her memory, but they tasted amazing. Now, with the disaster of a meal she had made, she wondered how she had ever cooked before. But now with Shuzu at her side, she could get an idea of how she managed it. Shuzu was the main cook, and she tried to make him happy with her food, which didn't work today because Mino complained about the big potato pieces in the curry. So later, Shuzu bought her a vegetable peeler, which she used all day. Now we see a memory from the past where Yoshiaki got a perfect score on an exam, and his mother told him that's the reward for his hard work. But in reality, his boss told him that sometimes working hard isn't enough, and that he needed to put more body, soul, and spirit into his work. While Mino slept, Yoshiaki told his parents that his company would probably go bankrupt soon, as many branches had already closed and he wasn't performing well. His parents offered him a job in the apple orchard, but he didn't want to bother them with his problems, feeling that they had these problems because he didn't try hard enough. He thought that if he followed the advice of his boss to give his all to work, things might get better. But she reassured him that he didn't need to overdo it because if his bosses took advantage of his efforts and kindness, he would always end up in the same place. So he could relax as he'd done enough already, and she would always be there for him. This surprised Yoshiaki, who, after a few drinks, vented his frustration to his boss. While he did so, and prepared the bed, and we see that she was discovered by her son, who noticed that her gestures, looks, and words were very different from the mother he knew. He felt that he was facing the mother of his childhood. This made In realize that her past self couldn't be compared to the Ein everyone knew. The next day, In might regain some memories when her husband takes her to a special place where she once confessed her love to him. Unfortunately, In couldn't remember anything from that day, so she resorted to something more extreme, asking her husband to recreate everything that had happened that day, hoping that it might trigger a memory. As they sat together, In was surprised to learn that she was the one who made the first move by touching his hand. She couldn't believe it, so Shuzu asked her to put her hand close to his and touch it slowly, as she had done before. But the closer she came, the more nervous Ein became. She couldn't stand it. She felt that it was all a lie. She even felt a tingling sensation all over her body. They left and she still felt uncomfortable. Now in a hospital, Ein sees an elderly woman in a wheelchair, who is actually her older sister. We see a flashback of her sister taking care of Ein during the stormy days. Despite Ein's attempts to talk to her, her sister didn't remember her, showing Ein how cruel time can be. After hearing that her sister was alive, Ein rushed to visit her, but she didn't expect that she would forget her family members at such an age, leaving her practically alone in this world. Even though Shuzu was by her side, she felt strange because she didn't remember him well and didn't want to be comforted by someone she didn't really know. She took some of his clothes to feel less alone. Later, we see Ein's older sister sitting at the hospital piano. Ein tells us that her sister used to play very well, although the sister mentioned that she never heard her play. She had only seen the keys. This prompted Ein to play a special song her sister had taught her, The Four Seasons, hoping it might jog her memory. Despite knowing that her sister didn't remember her, Ein made one last effort, and her sister finally remembered the song and played it with her. Although her sister didn't recognize her, she praised her piano skills, bringing tears to Ein's eyes. She continued playing, and the nurse and Shuzu couldn't help but be moved by the beautiful reunion. And 4 weeks later at dusk, Ein found herself alone for dinner because her husband had to return some machines and would be back late. Ein realized that it was the first time she had been alone, and she began to think. She hadn't regained her memory yet, and she didn't feel much love from Shuzu. The fact that he had left a pretty girl eating alone that night was another strike against him. Something was bothering Ein deep inside, though she couldn't put her finger on what it was. She felt restless when she thought about the last few weeks in which Shuzu had brought her up to speed on how things work now. She began to wonder if Shuzu's presence made her feel less calm, even though a part of her wanted him to hurry back. She wondered if his mere presence would be enough to make her completely happy. When she finally remembered her husband, she promised herself that he would never leave her alone in the orchard, bringing back all her memories like when she was 16 and confessed her feelings to Shuzu, which caused the broken clock to start repairing itself. Her relatives didn't approve of their relationship and forced her to stop going to the shrine. However, after begging for forgiveness, Shuzu was able to see her again. Ein fell seriously ill, and Shuzu paid for her treatment with his work, even though she tried to push him away. Shuzu promised her that no matter what obstacles came their way, he would always love her, and she would be by his side until the end of her days. They clearly kept that promise. When she heard the door, Ein ran to greet him, relieved that her memories, her beloved, and even her hair had finally returned, ending the episode.